Hi, welcome. On this video, this is part 8, I believe. As again, I do this extensive breakdown series, this back and forth between, again, Bow Wow Bill and Larry Krohn. And again, even as the balanced dog training community is in flames, it's absolutely on fire. Again, the whole situation involving the controversy, it's again the trigger point here, the role of, again, punishment. That's what really kind of set things in motion. And by way, again, of the International Association of Canine Professionals, a back and forth. And then again, the situation, again, I talk about, okay, the confusion in the balanced dog training community based on what they're marketing, the inability to call out the force free side. And not only that, okay, and again, this shows you just the compromised position that balanced dog trainers in. Not just that, but inviting force-free, experts to their conference. Okay, to this upcoming conference that they're hosting, and one of these force-free experts actually sidelined. Okay, due to again more controversy over the death of her dog in a vehicle. Okay, so that sidelined her attending. And meanwhile, okay, and this is again on just how this thing just keeps going. The controversy over the president of this association by way of using a remote caller. Again, just another firestorm. Dylan Jones calling him out. And you go over to his Facebook page, you'll see this back and forth. And meanwhile, okay, here's the other thing when I head to this. Meanwhile, you have Larry Krohn, pictured here, who's standing on this podcast. You hear him. He goes, I stand fully behind Dylan Jones in terms of his approach, in terms of what's going on. And so here you have Larry Krohn that is scheduled to talk as one of the experts, okay, at this upcoming conference by way of the president that's called out by Dylan Jones. I find that's going to be a very interesting, okay, dynamic to say the least. So anyway, this upcoming conference, I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I'll sit back, of course, I have some steak and a drink, because I'd never be invited to speak at a conference like this. Not that I'd ever want to, because they wouldn't like what I have to say about what they're marketing, any of it. Okay. But again, the balanced dog training community is in flames. Okay. This is probably I would say this is one of the biggest controversies by way of balanced dog training that you have, because you have all the elements. Okay, you have all of it. I've talked about it on my videos. Okay, you have all of it. Okay, you have you get the confusion over, right. That's what triggered punishment, right. So if you go back to the Jeff Gelman situation and look at that bonker situation where, and I said this, it's in my, I spoke about this. How you have balanced dog trainers that piled onto that situation, including Larry Krohn, over the bonker, trying to have Gelman canceled. Right. And here in this podcast, you hear him calling out Sean O'Shea as, destroying dogs. Okay. So you have that. Okay. And then you have, again, force free trainers, right? Balanced dog trainers give them hall passes all the time, come into their conference to talk. And you'll hear Krohn in this podcast calling that out. All right. Calling out, like calling out force-free trainers that way. But then he himself called himself a purely positive balanced dog trainer and advocates the narrative, rewarding, bad behavior to create good behavior. Just look at it. Okay. And then you have, again, more controversy over the role of the remote caller by way of the president of this association, right? Firestorm, right? And it goes on and on. It just doesn't. So this controversy involving this association has everything I've talked about for forever as part, and I've predicted that. This stuff I said this is going to get worse and worse and worse, because these balanced dog trainers, okay, it's all the fuel that they're operating on to market is ego. That's it. Pride and ego. That's at the center of all this. It's not based on what the truth is. It's all based on appearances. They're exploiting certain appearances, exploiting certain relationship dynamics, just like force-free trainers are. But force-free trainers look a lot less confused, okay, based again on what that ideology represents. I talk about that. Though you have to apply critical thinking. So let's play some more of this again. Believe this is part 8. I'm not sure, but we'll do a couple more parts here. But again, just to go through and kind of revisit the talking points. But here's the thing, okay? You hear Krohn on here, he starts trash talking individuals, right? I mean, the more he carries on with, the more bourbon he has, the more this escalates.
Fuck it, I'm letting it fly. I just can't help it. Like, this shit irks me. I've been doing this too long to still be upset 30 years later. It's crazy. And it's getting worse. Like, how is it getting worse? Like, science and
How is it getting worse? I mean, to even say that, okay, as he is marketing himself, right, as in a very superficial way, playing both sides of the fence. Like, how's it getting worse? And here's the thing: is I put the information out on a silver platter. Krohn on social media called me a douchebag, right? Not because I personally attacked him, because I actually am talking about the real issue. Okay, and this is the same thing he's doing here in this podcast when he, talks about certain trainers. Okay, Sean O'Shea destroying dogs. Well, okay, what's your criteria to establish? You talk about dogs being flattened and all this stuff. I talk about that. Appearances, right? Being able to reconcile properly the response of dogs to the relationship. It doesn't come through balanced dog training. Okay, understand that, right? So this is where all this inflammatory rhetoric comes from.
every field in the world is getting better, right? When I
Saying every field in the world's getting better. Well, why do you think dog training's not getting any better? I wrote a book on this, okay, called Mind and Body Connection. You can check it out. I go into Skinner, Pavlov, because they never studied, okay, the social, okay, aspect of how a dog's decision-making process is governed, influenced and governed at that level based on what that connection represents. They never did it. And so what came out of that was flawed at its core. And not just force-free trainers, but balanced dog trainers bought into the lie. Okay, they built off of a lie. You can't build off of a lie. Like, understand that. I mean, there's no wiggle room here. So that's where it's at. So when you build off of a lie, it brings on everything you're seeing in the dog training world: the confusion, the divisiveness, appearances, right? This whole thing, blame shifting, you know, um, failed relationships, right? Not just on the dog level, but on the human level too. These trainers going after each other, the infighting. It's unbelievable.
was 15 years old, I was 5'10", right? 15 years old, doing some cool things with a basketball, dunking a basketball. That was a novelty for a 15-year-old white kid back then. Today, kids that age with less than me are jumping over cars and doing crazy shit, right? Because the science and training and exercise and sports is through the roof. Well, guess what? It is.
So yeah, physical. Okay, physical. Okay, here we're talking about social, relational. Okay, there's a difference. Okay, mind and body. I talk about that. So when you call caught up in appearances, right? That's what gets you into trouble. I appreciate dogs for the amazing animals that they really are. They blow the roof off of this, right? So, I mean, but whose fault is that? Okay, it's the human.
With dogs too. So when people want to recite dog shit that was put in books 150 fucking years ago, that tells you who they really are, right? It tells you exactly where their mindset is.
So he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. Okay, these trainers. I mean, this is all ego. Understand these trainers have because they've already sold out. Understand it's not like they're going to back out of this. Understand that trainers like Krohn go on here and they're spewing all this garbage, going on the attack, trying to go on the attack, but it's all personal, right? It's trying to sideline people at a personal level. It's not trying to confront the real issue here. Understand all the background noise, and this is podcast, a perfect example of that. This back and forth. You hear this rhetoric, right? And they want to go on about other trainers, right? Pour some bourbon into the mix here and watch it fly. That's what you're seeing.
Well, and do you know about the 100th monkey phenomenon?
No.
That reminds me of the 100 monkey.
Can you imagine spanking all those monkeys at one time?
100 monkey theory. So critical mass, right? When learned behavior. So they gave the little monkeys like sandy potatoes, and they gave it to a bunch of these little groups of monkeys. And it's essentially one of the monkeys learned that if he goes down and washes the sand off of the potatoes, that it's much more enjoyable. So he started doing it, and then the monkeys that saw him do it started doing it, and then they looked, and it's called like the morphic genetic field of resonance around the world that we're all kind of attached to. that knowledge base spreads without necessarily being taught that.
Right.
And so
Right.
So here you have Bill Church, and I know who this guy is. It's the same thing. He's all caught up in this kind of like almost like new age spiritual stuff, and goes on about stuff, and but just spinning his wheels. Okay, it's the same thing. You know, he talks about all this stuff, and but always like looking, like always searching and stuff, but not coming to the reality of what the real issue is. Because understand that that's, you know, so we talk about here, because I use examples, I talk about the majority all the time. Just because you have a majority doesn't mean it's based on what the truth is. I mean, this is what's happened in the dog training world. You have these majority of trainers who are just have fallen into this trap. That's what's going on. And but again, they don't want to they don't want to line this stuff up. You can line it all up. Just look at the amount of dog owners that are struggling, dogs being destroyed, and they are mostly virtue signaling here, trying to elevate themselves to say, "Well, we're offering something different than force-free trainers." Well, no, you're not. No, you're not. Okay, I talk about that. That door is still completely. You're opening that door completely wide open to a counterfeit picture. Okay, based on how you're engaging a relationship problem, you're in the same trap. You're in a worse trap in a lot of ways because you're compromised. You know, that's the example, that conference situation with bringing force-free trainers in to speak. It makes sense to me because they align themselves with the exact same concepts, because they fall within that parameters of approaching as a learning-based exercise. So it's like clicker training. Oh, we offer that. Treats. Oh, we do that. Like it's a mixed bag of everything. You know, the difference between, understand the difference between a balanced dog trainer and myself. Okay. And I mentioned this story before years ago when I was in Canada. I was invited to sit alongside, you know, clicker trainers, right? At a very large vet organization, and I was aligned with the Humane Society for a period of time. But these clicker trainers wanted me to come alongside. I refused, and I didn't do it in a mean spirited way. I talked to the person as to why, explained it. You know, I thanked her. You know, I appreciate the invite, but I cannot, you know, do that because we take a whole different approach path for this reason. I talked through it. So it wasn't just saying no and not, like, I explained it. And so that's the difference, is that where's that line here? You know, balanced dog trainers, it's a the line is the bouncing back and forth fence line. I mean, there is no line. Okay. And I talk about it, go right into this whole thing about what represents training. It's not a learning based exercise the way it's being marketed by balanced trainers, force free trainers, setting in motion a counterfeit picture that way. I mean, you're dealing with a relationship problem. They're motivating dogs to respond in a very superficial way at the beginning and trying to bring, again, this is balanced out. This is the controversy over punishment. That's why force free trainers will say, hold on here a second. Why are you bringing punishment or a negative in when, you know, you're making it's about choices and free will? I've talked about that. Go watch the videos I just did on the Dylan Jones free will, you know, choices video I did. I talk about that. What's the context of free will and choice once a relationship problem is already underway? And take it over to the parenting example. See, there's so much here to unpack, but it's like it's just common sense, a lot of stuff. But understand, balanced dog trainers, they're in a trap. Understand something here. They're in a trap. They can't back out of this. Like that's the thing people have to understand. There's no refunds here. There's no wiggle room here. These trainers can only, confront me based at a personal level. Try to get personal. Try to do something. That's it. That's why they try to, you know. So they kind of celebrate this force-free trainer getting sidelined over a personal issue. With the issue they're trying to, but then to celebrate that in a way, like why is she there in the first place? Well, because the association invited her there. I think there's another force-free person showing up too. So, but even define force-free and balance, see, that's the thing. They're married at the hip. Like to split hairs and say, well, who's force-free and what's bad? There is no real distinction because they all engage it as a learning-based exercise. You have to understand that. So they've done it to themselves here. You know, they're compromised. Balanced dog trainers, they're in a bad way. I mean, and the balanced dog training community, it's on fire right now. Okay, just understand that.
That's what it reminds me of. And when you say basketball, for me, it was skateboarding.
Yeah.
I was a big skateboarder. I wonder if I got a picture of me skateboarding over here.
I hope not.
But dude, I was good, bro.
I don't want to see that shit.
Yeah.
Just look like a flame going by on wheels.
Like Krohn should have exited this podcast here after about, you know, after you had some bourbon into him. I mean, because the trash talking just goes.
Little smokes. But
Jose Mani wanted to know what I was drinking tonight. Eagle Rare, Jose.
Eagle Rare, what is that?
It's empty.
Yeah,
Bourbon?
bourbon.
Apple juice?
Bourbon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bourbon. Right?
And I
There you
remember
go, bourbon.
talking to Dylan, and I talked to Dylan, and I hope to do one of these.
And again, it's a bad mix. Okay, number one, okay, and I'll talk about this. You're promoting, you're marketing a lie. Okay, it's a superficial process. There's no critical thinking involved. You add some bourbon into that. What are you going to get? Okay, it's already personal, right? So you add some bourbon in that. It's no different. You go back to the Christopher Upton, podcast. They're still up. I mean, he passed away, but you'll see him just, same thing, just the trash talking because that's just how it's going to go. So it's just like, you know so here we go. We'll go through some of this because again, it's the hypocrisy. I mean, it's these trainers that will complain sometimes about, oh, this person called me out, or and they trash talk just as much as the trainers that they're complaining about.
Live streams with him, and there are some things, even talking to Ivan about Dylan, there are some things that I don't agree with the way that he interacts on social media, but he's also an individual that has the rights to do that as he chooses to. And I'm all about freedom, man. Even if something offends me, I will protect your right to do it. Like, I watched all these protesters on the corner, and I was telling them I'm thankful that they're out there protesting.
I'd like to run those motherfuckers over.
I know, but you got to let me finish. Even though I think you're idiots, I still like the fact that you're out here protesting because we belong to a free country.
When I drive past protesters over here in town, I stop, I honk, and I start harassing and laughing. I just laugh.
So here's the thing. Again, I go through because, again, people have to understand what they're dealing with here in the dog training world. Okay, it's so bad. This is the point of me doing some of these videos, to say, because people come on and try to get personal with me based on, again, I'm putting out specific information. But the reality here, in terms of just how bad the dog training community really is. Okay, you go on these podcasts and the trash talk and the controversy. I highlight some of it, but I'd have to hire probably 5 full-time people to go through and try to catch all the stuff going on. There's so much back and forth and controversy and confusion. I mean, it's crazy. And so I'm touching on the most kind of out there ones that are the most on social media, but this one here is just totally just igniting. But it had, like I said, think about it. It has everything I've talked about in it. Okay, it has all that stuff right through all of it. The confusion over punishment. That's the trigger point. Then the force-free trainers, showing up at the conference to speak. Then sideline. And then calling out the president. Okay, over the remote caller. Right, the video. Go watch that video. Saying about the dog pissing herself over the remote caller, how it's being used. Right, but then the virtue signaling, because you go on to Larry Krohn and look at the videos I've done. Look at his seminar video I did where the remote collar, how he uses that. Okay, it doesn't even align properly. It's so clear, the stuff. So, but it's all about just trying to gain traction on social media. These trainers, because they're walking on sand. The people don't understand, they're built on this lie, and so there's no way out. So it's got to be this. So we'll stop this part here. I'll probably do just maybe one more, okay? Because the trash talking just goes on with these trainers. It's absolutely ridiculous. Thanks for watching.